China versus the West, the 12th of September 2024. You're welcome back. Today was a coldish day, but very good, very little rain, unbelievable amount of corn harvested in Ireland, and an unbelievable amount of slurry gotten out too. So that means that let's go out in good dry conditions, great for the environment and everything. So things are good. A lot of work done today. I did a lot too, and that's it. So just to do a bit of reading and stuff now and turn in for the night. But one of the things that has happened is that China has essentially bypassed or left blindsided the entire Western world. It's making half the steel in the world, half the steel in China. So essentially what happens was America, to some extent, and Europe to a big extent, and Britain, decided to cut out fossil fuel from their societies, and thought they could do this by replacing it with weather-based electricity, which I have made videos to show cannot be done. But the thing is that China just ploughed ahead. At one stage it was opening 2 coal-fired power stations a week, and it has now gathered up an unbelievable amount of coal. It sees coal as the big point in its economic activity. Now you have a situation where the United States is saber-rattling at Russia and China, and they have no industry to make anything. They have a wee bit, they have a little bit in the United States, and they can make some ammunition, some weapons, some tanks, all that, but only a certain amount. Nearly none in Britain and nearly none in Germany, which was the home of it. Italy was great too. So the green movement has destroyed Europe essentially and damaged America. And that vacuum is taken up by the Chinese, and now the Russians are in on the act. And they're developing their own currency known as the BRICS currency. Now, there was a big racket in the EU, electric cars, and in America, electric cars. Oh, just typical woke. Oh yeah, oh they're the future. Oh, electric cars. Oh, they're the future. Oh. And they got lost. They wet themselves over them, to put it crudely. And the next thing was, the Chinese decided, well, we'll make the electric cars, and China makes good enough electric cars. Now, I tell you, electric cars are a scam. They're run on coal, oil and gas, of course, but that doesn't seem to matter much. And I believe in Moscow, there's a good lot of them being sold there. And also, but what China did was it went about flooding Europe with electric cars, and they're good enough. So the next thing was, the Chinese thought, and this will tell you they're not that smart, they thought there would be a huge uptake of electric cars in Europe, and there's not. People are realising they're an unbelievable nuisance. You're better off with a horse than an electric car in many cases. They're all right for tipping around town, doing the shopping, picking up the kids. They're all right for that. They're unbelievably heavy. They're impossible to dispose of. They have a lifespan of about 6 years. Nobody wants them second hand, and they're dying out. And China had acres, about 100 acres of them parked up, new ones that they couldn't get rid of. Anyway, as the Chinese flooded Europe and America and tried to flood America, only for Trump, he kind of blocked that with electric cars, Europe couldn't sell its own cars. The market's poor. So Europe has now imposed sanctions on China to try and drive up the price of the electric car. And even with that, people are still buying electric cars with the duty, which is sometimes, the import duty is sometimes 35%, depending on circumstances. So in any event, even the Chinese were silly because they did not realize that the electric cars would be rejected. But they also make petrol and diesel cars. Now, Volkswagen has announced it's considering closing down 2 of its plants in Germany. And that's on the backdrop of BASF, the big chemical giant. It was so big that during the war, the Allies could not knock it out. They couldn't bomb it. Now, don't ask me what acreage it is. It could well be 200 acres. Now, again, it should be seen on Google Maps. I haven't time to check it. But it was so big, the Allied bombers couldn't knock it out completely. And in the space of 10 years, the Greens did what the Allies couldn't do. In other words, the Green Party in Germany managed to close up the industry of BASF. and drive it off to America and to China. There's a little bit of a rump bit of it left, but not much. So you see the way what the Greens did. Hitler was banging away. The British, the French, the Americans, the Canadians all tried to wallop him with bombing and everything else and failed in respect of BASF. And yet the Greens did it in about 10 years. So again, the Volkswagen plant, I believe, is very inefficient. They have about 3 times the staff they need. They must have a culture of not laying off anybody. I think their cars are not too bad. I had a bore, it was too low to the road. It was only that distance between the engine and the road. And I broke the sump in it several times. And if you took the sump guard off, it was dynamite altogether. And the sump guard wasn't strong enough. But I have a Caddy and it's a good little yoke. So the point is, anyway, I hear this discussed that the Chinese have left them. And then the other thing is, as the Chinese are sanctioned, the Chinese are imposing sanctions on European cars. And Europe can't sell its cars into China. So the market is gone. So China can fill its own market. And we had hired out a petrol car. It was something D or something. And we discovered it was the Italian name, but it was made in China. And I can tell you, it would compete with anyone. It was a good enough car, a very good car. So the thing is that the Chinese will almost certainly supply their own market. The Europe won't be able to sell its cars into China. And that leaves Japan, and its economy is bad. It's selling US bonds off us. It's not good. So will Toyota still be there? Probably. Will Volkswagen be available for us here and Mercedes and all those? Well, everyone says they will. No problem at all. I have me doubts. If it becomes uneconomic to make them. So we could end up all relying on China to make our petrol and diesel cars in years to come. So I can't say any more than that. They closed down 3 nuclear power stations. Now, the other thing about Angela Merkel was the architect of this, and so now they have reaped what they sow. And I don't think the Chinese, I don't think the Germans have really. I don't think they've copped on, because while there was about 30% for Alternative for Germany in the last election, regional elections, that's not enough. I think there will be a swing for right-wing parties all over the world, but will there be enough to bring them into power? And in France, Macron has defied the electorate, and he's trying to put in that Barnier fella in who's no electoral. No one ever voted for him. Ursula von der Leyen, they're trying to put her in. No one ever voted for her. And they're trying to put in Kamala Harris in America. No one ever voted for her. But she has to go before the people this time. And the wise people tell me Trump is going to win. I don't know. So that's the story. Like it seems to me that only very, very radical reversing, even more radical than I would do, will save Europe. And I don't think it's going to go that way. I think it's going to go to massive poverty. They'll not be able to educate their children. They won't have cars. The bicycle will be primary. Old people will just die and they'll bury them in a mass grave. I think that's what will happen. There'll be very little pensions or anything. America might reverse. If Trump gets in, he might go back to industry, because if you don't have an industrial base in the modern world, you have nothing. If you can't make the basic items, you have nothing. You have to be able to make some things. Otherwise, who makes them? And the answer to that is what the Greens want and what the governments of Europe want. And that is that you have the horse and cart or the bicycle, a little allotment, and you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. And that's their objective. So anyway, I can say no more than that. It's interesting times to see such absolute lunacy. What's happening, I think, is that the youngsters coming on that got to be politicians, they're just brainless gone beans. They have no experience of industry or anything else. And so they never aid it or help it or whatever. I mean, wars are won. I say they're won in the bedroom, actually, with babies being born. But even if you go up a step more, wars need good industrial base behind them. And in the Second World War, Germany had a massive industrial base. That left it very hard to beat. But Britain too had a massive industrial base, and America had a massive industrial base. So in the American War of Independence, Civil War rather, it was the industrial strength of the North that beat the South. Now there's no industries. So how are they going to fight countries that have an industrial base? The answer is they can't. And I suppose all they can do then is press the nuclear button and blow us all to hell altogether. That seems to be all they have in their heads. Anyway, folks, that's enough on 10 minutes. We'll see you back for something else. Goodbye.